All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, the Whale Capper. Today we're talking NBA awards with our very own Kurt Helin, otherwise known as @Basketball Talk on Twitter. We'll talk Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, MVP, which I think they're going to name after Nikola Jokic at this stage. And then we'll wrap up talking about tonight's NBA. But Drew, what did you make of last night's slate? Fair bit happened.
Yes, it did. Beautiful slate for me. Everything broke my way in the NBA. 4 for 4 for what I was looking for. And Arina Sabalenka moves on to the semifinals. So cannot complain about anything right now. Riding high after seeing those results in the NBA. And, to a degree, fatigue angle is back, which is exciting. Although at the same time, like looking, you pop open the book thinking like, okay, well, let's get right back after it. And a bunch of the sides that I had circled for tonight are already steamed like an extra 2 points. So going to be a little bit tricky to figure out and navigate today's card. That said, I am definitely pivoting into sort of the real full-time caring the most about the NBA on a night-by-night basis in terms of my viewing and handicapping approach. So that's always an exciting time of year.
Yeah, it's funny. I've gotten some messages from people who watch and listen to the show saying that these people who I don't think watched a match of tennis until about 2 weeks ago saying there's less NFL chat, more Arina Sabalenka breakdown. So we'll get into that later. But one of our favorite subjects is awards and the markets around them. So let's welcome in Kurt Helin, NBC's own @Basketball Talk on Twitter. Kurt, it's good to have you on. Let's get straight into it. One of the awards that's most interesting to me at the moment is Defensive Player of the Year, which last year was a wide open field and Marcus Smart kind of came from nowhere late. And I think a lot of people disagree with the fact that he ultimately won. He's not in the mix this year. Jaren Jackson is the heavy favorite at the moment. Do you think that that's justified?
Yeah, because I don't see anybody else kind of jumping. I mean, it was Brook Lopez is kind of the other guy I would say is sort of in the mix. OG, I don't know if it's going to go back to the perimeter. OG Anunoby's had a really great year on the perimeter, but I don't know if there's going to be another perimeter guy this year. Miles Turner, you can mention. But to me, Jaren Jackson's value was pretty evident the second he showed up, and they just started just locking people down defensively. They started having this Drew might know the numbers off the top of his head. I want to say they were hanging around 20th in the league in defensive rating. They're first now. They were, and a lot of it's just how he swallows up guys going into the middle, especially when paired with Steven Adams, who kind of provides a big body and some rebounding. And they're going to be without him. So this will be interesting for the next 3 to 5 with him out. Was it? I'm going blank now off the top of my head. I wrote this last night and I can't even remember now.
PCL. That's I think where you got to go with this conversation, because was it JJJ on his own that elevated, or was it the sum of the parts? Because Steven Adams has been perennially underrated for his defensive contributions, I feel like, which means I saw that news break and I literally went to this market and I was like, okay, let's go down this list and figure out who is going to close the gap on him, because there is a realistic possibility that the Grizzlies could slide as far as defensive rating goes, just because of where we are in the season combined with the absence of Steven Adams. So, is the guy obviously that I want to campaign for is Draymond Green, just because of what he can do singularly. And I think, of the teams that are kind of in the middle class right now, who could really kind of bring themselves up with a little bit more effort. Is that too much to ask for? Is Steve Kerr going to get effort out of these guys in terms on the defensive side of the ball? So I don't know. Is there, if you had to make a case for a long shot here, assuming that Steven Adams' absence matters, is Draymond Green in the mix?
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head. They just have to start winning games with defense, which a lot now falls on him, that they've gone to this small lineup, right? If Kerr is leaning into starting Jordan Poole, so by the way, 6th Man of the Year, Jordan Poole out of the picture. But they're leaning into him. Leaning into the small lineup, it becomes all about Draymond. They just, without Looney there, this all becomes about his quarterbacking. If they string together some wins and do it with defense, I think he's been very good defensively this year, frankly, covering up an otherwise kind of shaky Warriors defense. It's just the defense hasn't been good enough as a team. If that improves, then absolutely he can jump into the mix. I'm not sold on Claxton and the Nets. I think he gets pushed around a little too easy, but he's very good at campaigning for himself. Like I said, I like Lopez, but I don't think this is a terribly deep field. So if the Grizzlies might also slide, by the way, guys, but is it just me or do they strike you as one of the teams looking at their watch thinking, hey, when is my flight to Cancun during the All-Star break?
A little bit.
Yeah. One long shot.
Yeah, we'll see. By the way, I will add this. I saw them lose to that ugly loss to the Lakers in person.
Oh.
They took that hard. Like in the locker room, the young guys took that pretty hard, which I thought was interesting. But I still then they go out and they haven't looked great since. So.
Yeah, it's a little weird that now the Nuggets with Jokic out have actually created more separation for the 1 seed, 2.5 games clear of Memphis. But one long shot, interested for your thoughts on Kurt, is Bam Adebayo, who also loves to campaign for himself.
Yes, he does.
Good at it.
He thinks he should have won it the past 5 years. But the Heat defense, particularly since Victor Oladipo started really getting back into his swing, the Heat defense has been surging. Now they're tied for 4th in the league. The past 6 weeks, they've been about the second best defense in the league, and they're getting unlucky as well with opponents shooting from mid-range and 3. And what I'm interested in, Kurt, is Jaren Jackson. He's missed 16 games so far, which, whatever. Everyone kind of misses 16 games in the NBA now, but he's also only playing 26 minutes per game. And while on a per minute basis, I think he's clearly the best defensive player so far. But do you think it's going to matter that we get to the end of the season on this pace? Bam Adebayo is probably going to play like 700 more minutes than Jaren Jackson. Do you think that is material, or is it just the permanent impact of Jaren probably just wins out?
I get a feeling Jaren's going to win out, but that's just in terms of like the horse race of it. But I actually do think it matters because I think for me, and I am a voter, playing minutes matters most for MVP. It matters a lot. Defensive player of the year is the other one where you just don't impact. Like you don't impact the game if you're not on the floor. And missing those 16 games in some ways makes Jaren's case, and in some ways dings him a little bit with Bam playing, frankly, so well on both ends. He has become. When did he just become unstoppable from 10 to 12? If he's 10 to 16 feet inside the elbows, it's money now. He's like with that jumper, but I think sometimes gets a little overlooked because we're used to him being really good, and he might need to campaign a little for himself, but he should be in the mix. That's another good name.
Yep. Let's jump to Sixth Man of the Year, which you touched on before, with Jordan Poole effectively being withdrawn from the race. He was the preseason favorite. Right now, the favorite in the market is Russell Westbrook, which it's weird that Russell Westbrook, obviously a former MVP, has kind of become a laughing stock in a way, because his shooting is so poor. I think that Westbrook is almost underrated at this point, where he has been good for them off the bench, providing shot creation, playing defense, I think more so than he has in years past as well. But it's just his shooting numbers are so terrible. And that team right now is outside even the play-in mix. So the guy who's most interesting to me in this market, who had a great game last night, is Norman Powell, who's now at 62% true shooting. He's pushing 17 points per game. Do you think Powell has a surge in him, Kurt, to potentially become a front runner for this award?
Can I just say, first off, everybody in the league can be the front runner for this award, because I don't think anybody has run away with that. Like there is nobody in this field where you're like, oh, well, this is like, by this point last year, we're like, yeah, who's going to catch Tyler? Like it was already,
it was over. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even close to that this year. I don't know who's going to get this. I mean, my midseason awards, I said it's Christian Wood, except he's not going to keep it because they moved him into the starting lineup already. He's certainly going to be out. Poole's going to start too many games. And it's just, and by the way, hasn't played great off the bench. He's been great as a starter and not great off the bench. So yeah, I do think Malcolm Brogdon's in the mix, but Westbrook is in the mix. Although is he? Norman Powell, look, Norman Powell's good and solid off the bench and had put up numbers. Does he need a Clipper surge? Does he need them to actually string together?
Definitely.
7 out of 10 or 10 out of 12 or something? Yeah. And I by the way, if he starts to play well, don't they have to rest him? They are the Clippers.
Yeah, you're going to need him. No, you're absolutely right. But at the same time, you look where they're standing right now. Clippers are in like the 5 seed. It feels like that's where they're angling. They're like, yeah, give us the 4 or 5. That's what we want. Like, it doesn't really feel like they are interested in putting together a sustained winning stretch of basketball. And the other thing about Westbrook being the favorite that's so mind blowing is that, number one, there are a lot of people who I think will sit down and be like, wait, are we really going to reward the guy for effectively getting benched? He got benched. And we're going to now give him a award for that? Like, that doesn't really square, I think, with a lot of people just in terms of
he's not
like giving him credit.
He's not been that efficient either. Like, his plus minus, he's been okay. He's a name. He is putting up, as Russell Westbrook does. He puts up numbers. Like, so the counting stats, which this is the one award, and I try not to do this as a voter, but this is the one award where I think the counting stats tend to win out, don't they? Like,
I think you also have to be on a good,
against Lou Williams and guys, but the counting stats seem to win out.
Yeah, you have to be on a good team too, though, historically. Yeah. Like, you know, and which I think is maybe my last quick question about this award and just awards in general. The awards are voted on after the regular season, but before the play-in. And I think that we saw last year, at least with the Rookie of the Year voting, pivoting towards Scotty Barnes so aggressively right at the end of the cycle. I feel like a lot of that was just on the basis of, well, now the Cavs are in the play-in. They might not even make the playoffs. I don't feel as good about voting for Mobley in this anymore. And I wonder, do you think there will be a premium on just getting a top 6 seed? And, you know, kind of if you're not in, you know, if you're outside of that bubble, if you're 7-8, you know, or 9-10, or in the case of the Lakers, 12-13, you know, like, are you realistically getting consideration when the awards are voted on?
I think that's it feels like Russell Westbrook's getting some, I'm on the Lakers inflation.
Okay.
Like, that's a huge fan base. But yeah, I think that you've got to, I think it helped on the second hand. Last year, Brooks was hot late and Mobley wasn't bad, but he flattened out. Yeah. Right. Like, he was hot early. All of a sudden early, he was on fire. Rookie of the Year tends to sometimes go to the guy who makes the surge after the All-Star game. So not this year, but a lot of years.
Kurt, just the last thing on sixth man. I think there's a good chance that the best guy who qualifies for this award by the end of the season is actually going to be Tyrese Maxey, but he only started coming off the bench 2 weeks ago, and he's probably only going to qualify for the award of having more games off the bench than more starts with 2-3 weeks left in the season. Do you think that tanks his case, or is that something where if he qualifies, then he's just going to be viewed as a candidate?
I think in a wide open year, he gets an advantage. I personally get hesitant with guys where that number of start reserve moments are close, or start bench moments are close. But in his case, I mean, he started injury. He's been off the bench consistently since the injury, so it's a little bit different. It's assuming he stays there the entire season or most of the entire season and doesn't really rack up a bunch of starts. I think his case is, no, this became my role. Let's put it this way. You can't do that you can't say Westbrook should win. And Maxey's at least was injury related. So I think he's got a really interesting case, and that's actually a really good name as well to follow in what, like I said, I have a spreadsheet for these things, and I had to add lines. I don't know what to do with six man. I'm just keep adding categories.
I love the fact that Poole got paid after being a 6-man last year. So now there's really no reason that Maxey shouldn't just really lean into this.
Yes, actually.
He's like,
Tyler made a really nice
Tyler
Hero, really nice 130.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can get paid.
6-man is wide open. MVP is starting to feel less wide open. Just quickly on this one, Kurt, Nikola Jokic's odds have just been plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. Last night, I felt like he had a bad game and he had a triple-double in the game winner, which is just where he's at the moment. Do you think just on the current trajectory that Jokic he's just on the path and likely just wins if he keeps this up?
Possibly. We'll see where – I mean, the problem is the field is thinning itself by injury, right? Durant was in the mix. He's out. Curry has probably missed too many games. Assuming Jokic does his normal 75, 70, like plays enough that you're in there. Doncic is interesting. I think it kind of depends on the load. I don't think it depends as much on Doncic because everybody knows what a load he's carrying for them. Does he wear down? And where do the Mavs end up fitting up in that? Like we were talking about, like if you're in the play-in, it's really hard to make an MVP case, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And there is, look, I know that Mark Cuban made them paint over the mural in Dallas where it was Luka holding up a sign that said, "Get me help," but seriously, get the man some help. So I think, it feels like Jokic. I always thought because of voter fatigue, 3 issues, that he was going to have to be overwhelming, but he's kind of overwhelming, especially if they finish with the 1 seed.
We're big Jokic supporters, so that's music to my ears.
So you bet him early, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, through the first third of the season, the reasons not to bet Jokic at the start of the season were voter fatigue, like you mentioned, and like, hey, if he's going to do it, they're going to have to be the 1 seed. And really, at the time, the idea was, well, if they get the 1 seed, that's because Murray comes back and looks like he looked, and Michael Porter Jr. comes back and looked like he looked. And then does Jokic really deserve credit if they're the 1 seed because those guys are contributing? Well, that hasn't been the case at all. They are there because of Jokic only. Yeah, they've been better lately, but they missed a ton of time early. So by the time we got to Christmas, it was literally like, oh, they're the 1 seed, and it's because he's carrying them even more aggressively than he did the year prior.
I tried to look up the other day. I was like, because they've been playing better, they've actually won a couple games with his off minutes, like winning the minutes he's off the floor. So I'm like, man, I looked up, I think it was yesterday. I'm like, man, so what are his plus minus numbers this year? Yeah, it's like plus 20.8. It's still just insane how much better they are with him on the floor. And that, Matt, if you're one of the voters like myself who puts importance on the word value in this, how valuable are you to your team? Plus minus matters. Those kind of ridiculous numbers matter.
Yep, 100%. All right, before we get into the Western Conference market, a reminder to download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster, get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, well, we've got our own 6th man of the year market, and it's the Western Conference, which is completely wide open, where I do think now that we have 2 teams who have created separation in the Nuggets and the Grizzlies, at least from a seeding perspective, but the Warriors are looming. The Clippers are looming. I mean, if the Lakers, if they pull off a big trade, which is probably going to require now the Westbrook contract and the 2 firsts, which, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But who is interesting to you in the West at the moment, Kurt? Is there a team that you think is poised to make a run?
I get the Clippers. Let's put it this way. I picked them before the season. I get what they can be. I have jumped off the bandwagon. I am not convinced that they are the Warriors. You can make the flip the switch case. I can't do it for the Clippers because when they're missing defensive rotations and they're not sharp, they're just not out there building chemistry as a unit. I don't know that there's enough time for them to build the kind of chemistry they need as a unit over the second half of the season, assuming that, again, Kawhi is going to miss back-to-backs, and I'm going to assume Paul George misses times. I'm growing on Denver. I think Memphis has the opportunity, but I'm starting to come around on Denver being when they're defending, because their defense was horrid the first part of the year, but it's been better lately. And if they're defending well and their offense is impossible to stop, is that good enough, guys?
Yeah. I mean, the case against Denver has largely just been their second unit, and when Jokic is off the floor, it's it's a tough hang. but at the same time, playoff rotations, you're telling me Jokic can't play 40 minutes a night? Yeah, of course you can.
You're sleeping on the Bones Highland strive for 6th man of the year that's coming.
Okay.
The defense has got to be better. And it's not, and this is what you get with Denver and Memphis. There's always a certain mentality of you can't do it until you've done it.
Sure enough, yeah.
And neither of them have done it. And Memphis in particular, Memphis is young, but I will also tell you that internally, they believe they've their window is earlier rather than later because of because Ja's style of play and his body getting thrown around, and he's not exactly built like LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
There is a concern that his peak is earlier than later, and they've got to take advantage of this.
I am of that opinion as well, and I have some Grizzlies futures. I'm getting nervous about them just because of the health part of it now, and like you said, like the general vibe of we need a break. That's not good. It's so early. We have so much time left. And speaking of a team that I was heavily invested in last year, that I think suffered from the fact that they went all out every night, night in, night out. It got the 1 seed, is the Phoenix Suns. And now the shoe is on the other foot this year, not necessarily by choice, but because of injuries and just in general, trying to figure out who they are. Like the Suns, they're not out of the mix at all. They're sitting in the seventh seed right now, a little bit over 500, but a couple, not even a month, maybe like 2 weeks of winning basketball puts them probably in like the 3-4 range. So is there a reason to expect once Booker comes back that the Suns are a decent bet at these sort of kind of middling prices now in the 8-1 range?
I mean, yeah, I guess if you can make us, I'm not leaning into them. I just think that their issues around DeAndre Ayton and the decline of Chris Paul are the kind of things that what got exposed by Dallas last year is the kind of thing that will get exposed again. I'm just not on board with them on the same level as a deep playoff run. Like, I'm completely with you that they are fully capable of. I mean, Devin Booker's so good. Yeah. And he was one of those guys when I was filling out the All-Star, like making my reserves. I'm like, yeah, he's missed a ton of time. I can't. Same with Zion. Like, again, I can't leave him off. Like, he's been too good when he's played. But get to the postseason, and if Chris Paul can't be that second guy and Cam Johnson can't be Jay Crowder, it's an issue. Although they might still have Jay Crowder, so who knows?
Yeah. To me, Kurt, the most interesting team in this is the Clippers, who have been the most confounding team in the league probably for 4 years straight. And I think the issue with them is like people are looking at how, Batum and Morris and Covington, they probably haven't gotten what they wanted out of those guys. Age is playing a role there. To me, the big issue is that when they signed Kawhi Leonard and traded for Paul George, that they were the 4th and 9th best players in the league. And now they're like the 14th and 20th best players in the league. And the problem is right now is that when those two guys are on the court, the Clippers are good, but their net rating is like plus 7.6. And that's not good enough when your team is so built around these two guys who need to be superstars, and they're more like all like third team, all NBA guys, maybe. Certainly not first team guys.
Paul George is. Yeah, I don't even know if Kawhi's played enough for that. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I think he's probably getting back to that level, but certainly not over the course of the season to date. Do you think that that's a team that has to make a trade, or do you think that they might stand pat at the deadline?
Oh, I think no. Actually, they're an aggressive front office anyway, and they have the advantage of we can go into the luxury tax. Like we'll take on your money. We will. Steve Ballmer has enough money, like in the cushions of his couch, to pay for all of these funds, all of this luxury tax. Getting a Mike Conley, Fred VanVleet might be too expensive in terms of just a trade ask, and I'm not sure what Toronto's doing. I'm not sure they're giving him up. But somebody who settled the point, who can play a little defense and knock down some shots, suddenly makes this team just a lot more interesting, right? Just somebody who can create a little bit more. Kawhi is still very good at that almost robotic, gets the ball, gets to his spots. You can't stop him once he's rolling situation, right? But like I said, my problem with them after having, and I'm out here in LA, I go to a number of Clipper games, is they're not sharp right now. Defensively, their rotations aren't sharp, and I'm just not sure they can get there. I'm just not sure they can get where they need to be by the end of the season with their depth. It's just, and I feel bad for Ty Lue because every night he's trying to figure out, who have I got tonight, and what am I patchworking together? And I'm just not sure, even if they get everybody back, most of the time it's enough time to build what they need to build.
Is there a trade that makes sense for them?
They've got so many of they are loaded with those 10 to 11 to $18 million contracts that they can swap in and out. I don't think they want to give up Norm, but they would be willing to give up a lot of those guys. Covington's in there, and they've got I think they've got a pick or two. I know they're looking hard at Connolly. I know they talked about D'Angelo Russell. I'm not sure he solves their problems.
No,
I'm not a big fan, but I know that conversation took place.
Whoa!
But they're looking hard at the point guard spot.
Okay.
And filling in there, like Fred VanVleet. I'm leaving. Oh, Kyle Lowry was another name I know that got thrown around, who's certainly not been good in Miami, but they're playing Terrence Mann there. And if you ask Ty Lue about Terrence Mann, he'll tell you he's our future 3, right? Like they're not playing a point guard at the point guard spot because Reggie Jackson's just not good enough. And John Wall is, I guess he'd be okay as a backup. Like he's been a nice story, but you know.
Yeah.
And how much do you want to lean on John Wall in the postseason?
Yeah. Their other issue is they've got the hardest remaining schedule in the
yes,
NBA.
They do.
And so you might think, oh, maybe the Clippers with Kawhi getting healthier are poised to go on a run. Well, look at their March schedule in particular, is just ridiculous. So they're probably not going to give you a top 4 seed, and that team just doesn't feel like it's ready to win 3 playoff series on the road.
How many bounces is Kawhi getting off the rim, man? It just depends.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Before we jump into tonight's games, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen on the PGA Tour, as well as in college basketball and the NFL, including a shot at $100,000 on Championship Sunday if you enter our Sunday Night 7 contest. All right, let's just quickly touch on a couple of the games tonight. Now, the Bucks are 8-point favorites right now over the Denver Nuggets, which means the market suspects that Nikola Jokic will not be playing. Tonight, Giannis and Middleton are in, which is a rarity for the Bucks. Kurt, I think, look, if Jokic doesn't play, there's not too much to read into this game, but do you think that the Bucks are a team that likely makes a move at the deadline, maybe for a Jay Crowder type?
They've been looking for a 4. I think that's exactly who they would like to get a little more depth, a little more shooting out there. But they're also a team that genuinely believe the continuity's there. They know who they are, what they want to do. They haven't really done it this year, partially due to injury, partially due to lack of interest. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on, but I expect that their switch will flip. And Denver, second night of a back-to-back where they had a big game tonight. And you're right, if they rest Jokic, he's definitely out. But even if they plays, that's a tough ask.
Yeah, it is. I think maybe the more interesting game on the board is Grizzlies at Warriors. First look at this Grizzlies team without Steven Adams, which is what they're going to be dealing with for the next 3 to 5 weeks. So Jaren Jackson better stay out of foul trouble. That's going to be an shape their next 5 weeks is whether Jaren's taking bad fouls, which he's getting it out of his game a little bit. But still, he still does have a high foul rate and just 26 minutes per game from Jaren. Do you think there's something real, Kurt, about the home road split with the Warriors and the fact that they just can't win road games, but do look like a juggernaut at home?
But then they've also had a couple of clunkers at home lately. I genuinely am not sure what to make of that other than another team that just thinks they can flip the switch. Although this is they don't have, not having Otto Porter, not having Gary Payton II, like their depth isn't nearly as good, but it's been a little better. Not having Steven Adams hurts this team, but how much does it hurt them against the Warriors, who are going to go out small? Like, is it a little different in this game than some of the others?
Yeah. And I think that's, you don't need to read between the lines. Totals 245.5. That is enormous. So yes, this is a game that looks like it will be decided by offense, and really just a fun game in general, considering
it should be entertaining. I'd say it should be up and down and entertaining. And I think this is, like we were talking about Memphis kind of thinking about vacations and looking tired, and certainly the Warriors have not been they have brought all the focus of a championship team to the regular season, but this is the kind of game they circle, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
This is the kind of game both of them are like, let's make a little statement.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. All right, Kurt, thank you so much for joining us. Can you let people know where to follow you and what you're working on at the moment?
A few things. You can find me at Basketball Talk on Twitter. All my work's up at NBC Sports NBA page, and I will not let you in on a really big secret. Next week, we're probably going to have some stuff on LeBron James. No, I've been working over the course of the year, building up, doing reporting on stuff for LeBron James getting close to the record. And after last night, the new target date is February 4th or February 7th. Look like the dates now. With the Pacers on that soon. So you're going to start to see some of this stuff come up on NBC Sports in the next week or so.
Okay, awesome. We will definitely look forward to that. Thank you again, Kurt, for joining us. Speak to you soon. All right, Drew, let's wrap up with a little more NBA chat. The game's on the slate tonight. It is a juicy slate. I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is Anthony Davis coming back and making that kind of just a real team again. And it looks like he's going to be on a minutes limit, 20 to 24 minutes. But that's probably it's not really the most interesting game because the Spurs are the opponent, but they are, I think, the most interesting team over the next couple of weeks. What are you playing tonight?
Yeah, huge rest advantage there for the Spurs on the road. That's rare, but they are the more well-rested team. Some of the fact that you have Anthony Davis coming back off the long layoff, maybe it takes the Lakers a little while to kind of find their form. I think if you're interested in playing the Spurs, you're only looking first half because they are now one of those teams that is full on fourth quarter, second half, pulling the rug. Can't afford to accidentally win. It is, they and the Rockets have had some fourth quarter performances that you can put in the history books for, under the definition of tanking. So I ultimately think the Lakers get the win, but I do show value on the Spurs, thinking about playing them first half only. The two games we already mentioned, I think Jokic goes. MVPs don't load manage, Jay. They don't. They go when they're healthy. They go. I think he plays tonight. I doubt that they give him the night off. I think the Nuggets are going to take this game pretty seriously. I'm going to take the 8 with the Nuggets, even though they are they're in schedule hell right now. This is one of the toughest spots on the entire schedule for them. So we'll see if that ends up mattering. But I don't mind having 8 points with the MVP, potentially out there. Now, if he doesn't play, I'm drawing dead, obviously. So kind of making a little bit of an educated guess there. I'm showing an edge for OKC over Atlanta. I'm showing an edge for our Magic against the Indiana Pacers. Even our Magic laying 6. Look at us. I think that's still a fair play, though. Magic, I like to get a comfortable win. And lastly, on the Warriors Memphis game we talked about, I laid it with the Warriors, and I don't feel great about it. A little bit nervous about what you get from Memphis in terms of effort there, but bad spot for Memphis in terms of arrest. And now you take Steven Adams out of the mix, and that puts even more stress on the guys who are carrying a heavy minutes load like JJJ. So a lot for me on the card tonight. But in summary, I took the points with Denver. I laid the points with Golden State. I like OKC, Orlando. And then looking for a first half angle on San Antonio.
Yep. I like the look on the Warriors in particular. Grizzlies need a break, I think. They're in a bit of a slump at the moment. All right, let's close out very, very quickly. How are you feeling about Sabalenka?
Her service game was at its nadir of late last night, and it did not matter. Every single point of that match felt like it was on her racket. She has constructing points extremely confidently. She is painting corners and just setting up her opponents. And you know what the best part of Sabalenka's game is right now, Jay?
What is it, sir?
She is confusing her opponent about which direction she ultimately is going to go extremely well. Like if you can disguise your approach angle, then you can, you have a humongous advantage. And she had Vekic guessing wrong on 50% of her winners last night. Like it was something to see. And when you're kind of playing with that level of confidence in your ground strokes, you are going to be a tough out. I think the other semifinal is going to be a lot tougher than the market thinks, by the way. There has been heavy steam on Robot Kina, and I think Azarenka is going to give her a little bit of a test there. I played over 2.5 sets at plus 150. And then, that would also help Sabalenka if that one goes the distance and those two gals come into whoever emerges comes into the final on fumes.
Oh yeah, we are big Vika fans. I do not want to see Elena Rybakina and her robotic face. She's an absolute killer. I do not want to see her in the final. Getting Magda Linette in a Grand Slam semifinal, that's like the Celtics getting the Wizards in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, if Sabalenka drops that, then you just have to cop it. But I think that's about as good as a draw as you could possibly hope for, considering that she's gotten through this bottom half without having to play Ons Jabeur, Caroline Garcia, even players like Samsonova, who would have been difficult on her day. To bypass all of them, to bypass Pliskova as well, and get Bekic and Linette as the quarterfinal, semifinal. It couldn't have broken better. But
Sabalenka, of course, has played Magda Linette on a big stage before, the Olympic Games. She won 6-2, 6-1. So let us hope that the dominance over the resurgent 30-year-old Pole, Magda Linette, it shows up in spades tonight for our girl.
Yes. I shouldn't have made the Wizards comment. Now Linette 7-6 in the third. But I'm feeling pretty good about that. But I would love Vika Azarenka to knock out Elena Rybakina.
Oh, boy, would that be sweet.
We'll break it all down. All right, we're done. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. Thanks again to Kurt Helin, from Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick. We'll see you soon.